Good afternoon, everybody. I'd like to take this opportunity to thank everybody for joining today's Think Tank Thursday session. I know we have our yes youth, we do have supervisors, we have some colleagues joining us as we welcome you to today's Think Tank Thursday session. But before we can just go into detail in terms of what to expect from the session, maybe we can do 2 minutes of introduction, right? So as we did highlight from the invites, today it's all about, changing things. We're gonna try to do things differently. It is a new month, so we are looking into the power of youth voices. So for today, we do have a young guest speaker who is Mbali Ntuli. She's very exciting. We are excited to have her. So she's also bringing and also be sharing her journey in terms of civic participation. She will also speak about leadership. So I'm just going to start with an introduction, maybe from the chat box. I see some of you have already started introducing yourself. So please do let us know, who are you joining with? Are you joining alone? Are you joining with your supervisor? Or it's just you and your colleagues? And then we will just jump in and ask our guest speaker to join us. Anyone to start us off from the chats? I see most of you are joining from different whole sites, different locations. We have Asive, social auxiliary worker. We have Busisiwe from Zinto, Gutle from New Era in East London. We also have Fortune from Kruger Shalati. Anele joining from Bonisani Primary School in KZN. Also joining from Chief Packaging. We also have Assesa from Mablix Tutoring, Yonela Sibongile from Supo Burial Society, Nompumelelo joining from Komani Primary School. It's exciting to see that we have different people. Some are joining from East London. Funda is joining from Jomba Projects. We have Mokara from Limpopo Skills Academy. Thank you so much for joining us from Limpopo. We also have Nompumelelo together with her colleagues from Johannesburg Central District. Exciting to see you online. We also have Penelope from Madiba Primary School, Ongezwa from Gauteng East District. We also have Mohau, also from Limpopo, Ntabi Sen joining from the Youth Development Center. Thank you so much for joining. We also have CV Way from East London. We have Lisijo as a social worker from Northwest. Thank you for joining and representing Northwest. We have Ngobile from Great Food Gardens, Ompumuluso from the Finance and Burial Society, Anastasia Malele, thank you for joining us. We also have Cindy Siwe from Wellington, Gauteng. Welcome, Cindy Siwe. Kanye Ziku from Grassroots. And I'm excited to also see that we have some of our alumni, which is great. Kilebuhile from the Wits University. Alice from Limpopo in Vembe East. Right, Bokang from Mercedes-Benz, Nontlakanipo from the Diamonds of Africa, excited to see you. Tuli from Quickard, Mafuleka from Solomon Munehi, or Alice from the Business Enterprise. We also have Tuchofato also joining from Wits. Charity from the South District joining alone. Welcome, Charity. And we also have Tina. Tina joining from Anix Logistics in East London. Right. So I won't be able to go through each and every introduction from the chat, but if you just joined us, please do proceed by introducing yourself. Let us see you. It's exciting to know the people joining online. Right, so because of time, I'm just gonna move to our speaker, Mbali. Welcome for today's Think Tank Thursday. Thank you so much for joining us. So over to you. If you can just tell us a bit about your background, who is Mbali, so that we can also get a feel in terms of the speaker for today. You can unmute.
And a very warm welcome from all of us in Bali. Thank you so much for taking up the opportunity to chat to us, to inform us, to share with us your vision and your dreams, and also give us a lot of information what we can be doing to become active citizens. So we are very, very excited and very privileged to have you here today.
Thank
all of us are in for something special. So stay connected. Over to you, Mbali.
Thank you so much for having me, and it's really nice to see so many of you to come on. I'll give you a brief introduction about who I am, but I really want to spend a lot of the time discussing the topic at hand because I think it's very important at the moment that we are in our country, and just in terms of where I think we can go as a country and what we are all going to have to do if we want that to happen. So, my name is Mbali Ntuli. I'm from KwaZulu-Natal. Uma wasemaphumulo, ubaba wasevuka phansi ngaseNkandla. I grew up mostly in Durban. I would say that I've always been really interested in activism and being a part of, sort of change movement. And that's really been what I've been doing throughout my schooling and my career. I was a councillor in Nande, Bambai, Ward 57, after the 2011 elections. And then in 2014, I became a member of the provincial parliament, which I did for 10 years. And I really enjoyed politics. I liked being a public representative. I liked being able to help people, even if it was something as simple as helping someone get their ID or, help someone get their child into school if maybe they hadn't been able to do so. And also the legislative side. I enjoyed writing bills in the legislature. Not all of them were passed, but they were really important in terms of getting some conversations happening. So a lot of things around sex offenders and people that were abusing children and all that sort of stuff. But after a while, I think in politics, I started feeling a sense of just unease with the political party that I was in. I'd been in the Democratic Alliance, and we won't go into too much detail there, but I did run for the leadership in 2020. But at the end of that leadership race against John Steenhuisen, my feeling actually was that maybe the party was not where I could make the kind of change that I thought needed to happen. And so I spent a few years thinking about what it was exactly that I wanted to do. And I came to the great realization that actually every time I went to a new community or spoke to new people, it would almost always feel like I was starting from the beginning by explaining to people just how the country and the state worked. And I'm not blaming anyone because we're all so busy and we have so many, obligations that no one has the time to go through legislation, figuring out everything about the country. But there's something to be said that we are missing a huge portion of civic education in our country. And as a result, we, the citizens now, feel very powerless when we see everybody in our political leadership not doing what they're supposed to be doing. So I thought I would start an organization, and I did, called Groundwork Collective in 2022. And we focus mainly on civic education. I'm not talking about, on a Wednesday, everyone votes and you put your X next to whatever party. That's called voter education. And the IEC does a lot of that. I'm talking about civic education where you get people to understand just how the state works and where they themselves can then come in. And so, I mean, I can't see all of your faces, but I like to ask people very simple questions just so you understand what I mean. How many people, or just ask yourself, do you know how the president is actually elected? Have you ever met your counselor? Are you just happy that you might be included on a WhatsApp council group? Do you know the CPF in your area? Have you ever attended a meeting of the CPF? If you're a parent, do you go to any SGB meetings? Do you know what an urban improvement precinct is? Which is a way that people can actually get some of their rates back who own homes and be able to actually decide as a community what they want to do. Have you ever been to a council meeting? Because obviously council, the legislature, parliament, these are people's house. These are considered the people's house. So it means anyone actually has permission to go there. You don't have to wait for anyone to tell you that you can go to these meetings. And I ask this because looking at the state of our country, I think we all know that it's not where we would like it to be. But my question really is, well, then who is supposed to be changing it? If we're all unhappy with the state of the way things are, who are we waiting to be the people that are going to change it? And very often, most people tell me, but I voted. And that's okay. But we can't allow for voting to become the only way that we civically participate in our country because all that means is that we've given our choices to be out to whatever political party or political entity, and then we sit back. Whereas democracy actually requires us. Sorry, someone says I'm losing sound. Can admin just tell me if you can still hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you.
Okay, cool. And so yeah, that's the problem that we have. And we've forgotten that democracy, it's a contact sport, guys. Everyone's got to get involved, and we've got to do it in between elections to hold people accountable. So I want to just share a presentation with you so you get a better sense of what I'm talking about, and don't have to listen to me. Okay, so I wanted us to just do some reflections on 2024. And then I want us to think about what does that future look like? And particularly for you guys as young people who are getting into the world of work, if you look at the way that our economy is going, we should already be very, very seized with the idea of what we want our next local and national elections to look like, because we are the ones who are going to be actually at the brunt of whatever happens in these next two elections for the next 12 to 20 years, because that's actually when most election promises or outcomes, if there are, actually kick in place. I'm 37. That means I'll be, sort of in my late 40s by that time. But as you all well know, we have very current and pressing issues now. And I think that there is a lot that we can do. And I'm hoping at the end of this, there's going to be some resolution on how we take that forward. So I'm going to go into the state of South Africa, which we won't delve too much into because I think you all know that. The reflection on the election outcomes, and then what we can actually do. So currently, the state of our country is that we have 27,000 murders per year. We are only able to convict one in those 1 out of 10 serious crimes actually gets lead to conviction. We know that dismantling the Scorpions weakened our law enforcement, and we still are paying for that years later just from that one decision. Many of us respond to numerous surveys that we feel very unprotected against rising violence and crime. Youth unemployment is at 60%. I think 64 now, if there was just released a couple of days ago. And overall unemployment is at 32%, with 60 million people relying on welfare. We rank 41 out of 100 in terms of transparency and accountability. 75% say that our government is bad on corruption. 71% people believe that politicians get away with it. Load shedding has cut 20% of our economic potential since 2007, and our GDP loses 1 to 1.3% annually, and that's about between 85 million to 230 million per day. That's what our country is losing because of the leaders that we have. 250,000 jobs have been lost just in the last year, so from March 24 to this year. 80% of commuters who used to use our trains have abandoned them between 2013 to 2021. They don't even have they don't even have numbers after 2021 because that's how few people are actually taking the trains. And that's also because we spent just over 2 billion on acquiring the wrong trains. And I'm sure you guys are well aware of one of our influencers who is dating the person who acquired these wrong trains and likes to get on social media showing us her Hermes bags. And so there's just also no shame that we have from these leaders in the way that they steal our money. And then, of course, all of our SOEs are constantly involved and in court because of suspicious contracts to the value of what is now at 4 billion US dollars in the last part of our democracy. So with all of these issues, you would think that we as a country, as young people, would be able to mobilize and actually make sure that whenever we get a chance, even if it's just at the elections, that we actually make sure that we go out and we make sure that our views are really heard. And there was this idea that, young people don't register, young people don't care. And so a big part of what we did at Groundwork Collective was that we actually went out to get young people registered because we wanted to just prove that young people had opted out of the idea of being involved in their democracy. So I just want to play you a little bit of something that we did. Please let me know if you have sound. I know sometimes you have to click something, but I'm not sure. Admin, will you let me know?
It has been amazing to be able to actually come to people to make the whole process of registering easier for them. Send where your date, Siselebrate umhlaba omusha usho ukuthi sishiya konke okudala sibuyela entsheni njengentsha fanele sizame ukuthi sishintshe iy'ndlela zethu sibe proud of thina siyi-South African sikwazi ukuthi sishintshe futhi umhlaba wethu. I believe that it's important for young people to register to vote because they are the future of this country. If they have no hope in the politics of the country, then we have no future in the country. So I think it's very important for them to be involved because they are the future leaders of this country. If you don't register, you can't vote. And if you can't vote, you don't have a voice. I registered to vote because I believe in a better South Africa.
Ngibhalisela ukuvota ngoba ngiyafonela kwi-South Africa stand more.
Register to vote. Democracy needs your voice.
And so we went on this campaign. We registered young people all the way from 16 above. We were in taxi ranks, malls, shopping centers, community centers. We partnered up with a lot of different organizations to get young people to register. And not just register, just for it. You won an automatic KFC voucher if you registered with us. You also stood a chance to, tickets to go to one of the concerts that we'd organized with people like Musa Key, Shekinah, Party Cooper, Shasha, a whole bunch of different artists that we thought would get the youth. And they did. They came in great numbers. But now, what did that look like for the elections? And so we have our elections last year, and we have a registered population of 27 million, and yet only 16 million people actually came out and cast their votes. And so the IEC says it was 58.64% of turnout, which sounds good until you actually realize that if you take that with all the people that should have been able to, only 35% of people actually showed up to vote last year and decided that they wanted to have a say in what happens in the country. And as you can see, what happened afterwards with the three major parties that came out, and of course now the GNU, we didn't give anyone a clear mandate, which is fine, that's our choice. But not many of us gave anything at all. And this is not a country like in Australia where if you don't vote, you get a fine or, it's mandatory. In South Africa, if you don't vote, it's considered as though you just didn't go. And so they'll only look at the people that did show up to see, what they decided. And so it was very disappointing that despite the fact that we had the highest registration ever in our country, and I will say that young people went out in numbers, 82% of the young people that we registered and in general actually did go out to vote. It was older people who I think are very disillusioned with politics and the promises that they've been waiting for that decided that they actually were going to sit this one out. But as a result, like I said, it's a team sport. They let us down as young people, and so we got given this sort of mess that we have. And last year's election was actually the second lowest election in terms of voter turnout since 2004. So there's something that's wrong in our country. We have all these massive problems, but we also aren't using, at the very least, the one mechanism that we know we have every couple of years to change these people. And so that was a problem. But also, if you remember in the last election, there was a lot of nervousness around whether our elections were going to be as free and fair as possible. Parties changed a lot of the different laws and confused a lot of people because they were really trying to outmaneuver each other and ended up actually not doing well because of that. But there was also a lot of trepidation as to whether there would be enough observers and people. And so again, one of the things that we wanted to do was we wanted to show that South Africans are patriotic. We asked South Africans to please sign up and come and be observers with us. We did the training. We would ask them if they needed airtime or food or transports to get there. And we designed a great app that people could use. And we had over 3,000 people that ended up actually signing up. And I'd really like to encourage all of you, I'll give you my details at the end, that when we do this again for next year's election, and I was on the call with the IEC just earlier today, that you all please sign up as young people to protect the election. And that you also get your friends and family. We only ask for about 5 hours of your day on election day. You can go browse to the beach afterwards if you like. But we really have to actually really start helping the IEC because they just don't have the manpower to do all of this themselves. But you'll see later why this was so important. So, and then we tried to speak to a variety of different age groups and cohorts. So we had, PJ Powers, Zuleika Patel, My mind has just gone blank about who this is. Moshindiki. We also had Mablur and Nandi Ngoma, and a whole bunch of people at different places. We were playing these adverts everywhere to get people to come and actually register. I'll just play you the Zuleika one only.
Everyone, it's Zuleika, your favorite change maker. I'm here to once again remind you that anyone is capable of bringing about change and creating impactful change in their community. I am now a Groundwork Collective ambassador, and I've registered to become an independent election observer in the upcoming election. And this is something anyone can do to defend their democracy. So big ups to all the people who have registered to vote in the upcoming election. You can take it a step further to use the link in my bio to register to become an independent election observer to defend our hard-earned democracy. I hope to see you all in the upcoming election, practicing your hard-earned right to vote.
So it was really great that we could get all these people to help us with our message. And as a result, we had 3,000 observers across the country. Initially, there were actually about 7,000 that had signed up, but on the day, for various reasons, we got 3,100 people, which is still the most of any civic organization in the country. We obviously observed at 3,100 voting stations, 1,600 combined hours with the observers, many of whom were working way past the deadline because, as you know, once people are on the queue, we don't stop and turn them away. Everyone has to get to vote, even if it means that they vote after 12 midnight. We were in all provinces, and all of our observers and our observation was 100%. It was non-partisan, so we don't do anything that supports any particular party. We do it just for people. And I'm very proud to say that when there were challenges brought to the IEC, we had over 17,000 pieces of information, whether it was photos, WhatsApp messages, pictures, or just general feedback that we've been able to give to the IEC. And so one of the reasons I say it's important that we also just protect our election is that the IEC might have been actually unable to declare the elections free and fair if it hadn't been for organizations across the country, civic organizations that also did election observers. And all of that was done by ordinary South Africans. So yes, you get the normal things, late openings, maybe some officials were not prepared. There was great confusions around the 3 ballot papers. The voting process confused a lot of people because there hadn't been a lot of time for everyone to understand. But by and large, despite those challenges, we were able to say that the election was free and fair. And if we had not been able to do this, I guarantee that we would be looking at a very different type of country at the moment because of the nature of the way that the courts challenge have been taken up by certain political parties. I'm sure you'll remember after the election that quite a few of them came together to say that they were taking this on review. And the independent work that was done by observers and ordinary South Africans was what actually helped to not put us in a situation that would have been quite precarious. So now it brings me to what the actual problem is and what we need to do. So we know that voter registration is going down amongst young people, well, until last year, even though young people make up 70% of our population. I don't think that that's because young people don't care about politics or that they don't want to participate meaningfully. I think it's because there's been a real lack in our democracy when it comes to civic education. And that's because after 1994, I think everyone was so excited that we had a democracy, we had that, the IEC, that people forgot that you actually have to continue teaching the next and the next and the next generations about how everything works. Otherwise, you get to a position where we are, where across race, across age, across economic, status, very few people in our country feel equipped to actually meaningfully engage with how the state works. And at the same time, the IEC's budget is cut year after year. And so the IEC's job and mandate isn't to do civic education, it's only to do voter education. And so the rest of it is left up to civil society to be able to do. And I'll skip this because we've sort of spoken about it. And so what you have is now that South Africa is the 5th lowest voting country in the world. And if you look here at the bottom, you see the United States and the United Kingdom, and you might think that that puts us in good company, but it's not. The reason that those countries can have lower voter participation is because whether it's the Democrats or the Republicans that are in charge, or if it's, Labour or the Conservatives in the UK that are in charge, by and large, you know, to wherever you live, there's going to be water coming out of your tap. The roads are going to be paved with no potholes. You're going to get your state's, pension or whatever. It doesn't matter who is in charge. Those kind of issues for them have become, just pretty normal. And so instead, what they fight about is these culture wars about, what is woke or what bathrooms can people use. Us, on the other hand, we don't have any assurances of any political party that if we vote for them, we will definitely get proper water or we will definitely get an increase in the creation of jobs or an environment that can create jobs. And so we out of kilter with the rest of the world in that we've got these problems, but we also refuse to go out and vote. And it's because we haven't done a lot of civic education. And I just want to show you a couple of stats so that you understand just really where we are. So one, a lot of young people in a 2016 study said that they didn't feel that they were competent enough to engage with the politics because sometimes it seems complicated. Also, when you see parliamentarians throwing chairs and fighting in parliament, I think it puts people off. But as a result, and this was in 2021, I tried to find their latest one, I couldn't, but please just look at where we were just after COVID. And we had just had that last local government election in terms of the people that make the decisions for us, parliament, parties, premiers, police, local council, oppositions, they're all at the very lowest in terms of where South Africans trust them. And that's because obviously we feel like they haven't been doing their jobs and they've been corrupt. But this is a very dangerous place for any country to be, especially one as young as ours, because it makes it right for 76 for people to be able to say, you know what, I'm so tired of the way that South Africa is. If someone just came up and said, I'm going to give you a job and some security, and we're going to try and decrease crime, then 76% of South Africans said that they would vote for that person. And not just vote for them, but then forgo, meaning not have any more elections because they would just be happy that someone gave them just bare basics. And it's a dangerous position to be in as a country because it means that that once anyone gets given that amount of power, they're not going to give it up. And we would all be stuck in a very bad situations. And so this is where we are now. This is what we're doing. And it weakens our democracy if you don't vote. Obviously, you have a loss of representation, you get disengaged, and you give up your constitutional rights to make decisions. And I often say to people, I'm not expecting you to change the policy of Eskom or, change how, PRASA or Transnet is operating. What are you doing where you are in particular? What are the practical things that you can get civically engaged in? Because at the very least, if you can put pressure on your counselor for something, that counselor is going to feel the pressure to put that pressure on their caucus. And that caucus will feel the pressure to put it on the party. And the party will have to change because they'll be scared of losing all these young people who, let's just say the issue is that everyone wants, I don't know, a new library or something in a particular community. That doesn't even take a lot of effort for us to be able to get. You could literally ask the people up and down your streets to sign a petition, take it through, and get it to be put on the agenda of your local council. The same with councillors. I often ask people do you know how you could get a councillor that isn't working fired? Very few people know, and it seems as though we've given up on the fact that we have one of the most participatory democracies in the world. Nothing in South Africa, or very few things in South Africa, can be passed as law without citizens actually participating. It's why you hear of them, putting things out for comment or going to town halls. But very often, none of us show up. And then when something becomes the law, we all look at each other and we're surprised. Again, I can't see you guys, but I'd be interested, just again, when I talk to people, how many people have medical aid? And often in many rooms, everyone's hands goes up. And then I ask them, are they happy with the current legislation around the NHI, which is the new National Health Bill? And almost everyone says they're not happy. And then you ask them, how long do you think that this bill has been on the agenda in our parliament? And most people will say maybe like 2 years, 3 years, something like that. But it's actually been there for the past 17 years that we have been discussing this in some form or another. But people only wake up when it's about to be signed into law and when it's really something that's going to affect them. And I want us to start changing our behavior in South Africa because we only participate in things when they only affect us. And as a result, particularly our middle class has decided to insulate themselves using money. So schooling is bad, they go to private schools. Health is bad, they get medical aid. Crime is bad, they get blue security or enforce or whatever. And so they've been trying to take themselves out of the problems that the government has made by insulating themselves with money. The problem, of course, is that now everyone's feeling the pinch. And we can't just allow for it to only be people who are at the worst part of our economy and are quite poor to always be the ones doing protests for things that we all agree need to be done. This country has 3,500 protests a year. And those are people in all types of communities asking their public representatives to do something about it. And many of us, and I'm not saying that everyone must go to every protest that there is, but many of us allow it to become somebody else's problem. And as a result, it is now all of our problem because we cannot continue this way. Our country and our economy is going to collapse. And even the amazing work that you guys are doing and Youth at Work is doing, eventually there'll be nothing left. We can see our brothers and sisters in the countries just above us and how that has happened. So we have a very participatory democracy, but not anyone really takes a lot of efforts to go to them. And for me, the civic education is what could actually be the changing point. So I want to encourage you, first of all, to just follow the work that we do, but also other organizations that do the same, Activate, Future Elect, so that you understand, even just from the basics, and we even do it in schools now, just from the basics of, like I said, does the health minister, for example, have to be a doctor? What does a DG do? How is the budget of the country passed? There was a huge uproar earlier on this year about VAT and everything. And for the first time, I actually found people wanting to know how the budget was passed. If you don't know that, tomorrow when I come and I say, vote for me because I'm going to give you 20 million jobs, and you don't know how I would create that or if it's even possible given the legislation, you're going to make your votes on an uninformed basis of maybe you just like me, but I could be talking nonsense. But if you know that there are certain steps for how a budget has to be put together and how that happens, you're far more informed about being able to listen and hold politicians accountable. We don't get a strong, good democracy in a country that makes money and makes jobs and is thriving by trying to hope that politicians are going to change. You need the citizens to be informed to put pressure on the politicians. And right now, they don't feel any pressure from us because they know they can say anything, they can do anything, and we don't mobilize in an organized fashion to actually do anything about it. Unless every now and then it's something that really shocks us, like maybe there's a really bad GBV case or something, and then we go back this, and then there's another crisis. But there's nothing consistent that any of us are doing enough because we're not informed enough. And so for me, that's where we need to start. We need to start making sure that everyone understands all the intricacies as much as possible, at least the practical ones that are closest to people about how to change them. And I think if we can do that, we'll have a far different country. And I just wanted to, because I want to give time for questions, but I wanted to give you 4 things that I think you can do right now. First, at the moment, there's something called the Electoral Reform Panel. And also don't be, put off by some of these like terms and jargons. Please go and have a look at what that panel is doing. They basically are deciding going forward for the next election how all of our how the system of our politics is going to work. Should we have constituencies? Should communities be able to vote directly for, the mayor or the president or the person that's going to be their parliamentarian? They're asking questions of, is it practical that we have provinces and national the way that it is? Should we maybe do away with one layer? Would it be easier if we had smaller municipalities? These are all the discussions that are happening in our country, and they're all going to affect all of us in one way or another. So we've made a lot of our inputs to the panel. It's still open. They're going around the country, but you can tweet them, you can email them, you can send it through the post office, although I'm not sure if the post office is working that well, but there are lots of ways that you can all make your inputs. And it doesn't have to be, some academic long English thing. You can just say, mina as umbali, ngingathanda kabi ukuthi ngikwazi ukuyikhethela umuntu ozoba umongameli or umeya wami. Ngiyabonga. All of those have to be tabled and put together, and then they'll go out again for participation, and then Parliament has to work. But if you don't get in part of it now, you're going to wake up in 2029 and be very confused why the country looks different and why your province and your city feels different, because all of these rules would have been changed. The same for demarcation process. I think that might be done now because the election is like 16 months away, but it might not be done in all your areas. So it might be good to look at that as well. And the demarcation process is basically every time we're about to have a local election, there's a committee that sits and they look at, okay, Ward 57 used to have 50 people, but now it's got 300 people. It doesn't make sense for it to be one ward. Now we have to split it because you can only have this many people to this many people to be, a proper ward, so that you could have a council that could work on it, or that the municipality could be able to support it. And often many political parties use this process to try and make the ward into a way that it's got their little people, so this is going to be strong for them, and then they push everyone else into, the areas outside. And again, something just for you to know about your own area. What is the ward you're in? Go look on the IEC map where your ward is and go and see what is actually considered. And think about whether it makes sense, or if maybe some political parties were a bit overzealous in the last election. And the last one in terms of legislation is there's a Municipal Structures Act that is out for comment right now. That act has a lot of different things that it's proposing, but one of them is that it wants to bring in thresholds to our elections. So basically, they're saying because we have so many parties, we only want to allow parties that get 2% and above to be able to be in Parliament, or to be in the legislature. And again, you might think, oh, maybe like, oh, we do have too many parties, so whatever. But what also happens when that happens is that the parties that are considered the strongest at the moment, they artificially look like they're bigger than they are, because they've said everybody else actually can't come into the voting pool, and that they are not going to. And so then we'll have to ask, if those people who voted for the party that didn't get 2%, where do their votes go? How are they represented? Because one of the most important things about our democracy is that we said everyone's voice should be heard, and that's why we have a proportional representation system, so that you don't get this thing of winner takes all. It has to be given equally in terms of the representation proportionally of the way that people vote. But that is something that's there right now. And the two biggest parties that are going to be the winners of that are going to be the ANC and the DA, quite frankly. Well, at the moment, we can have a conversation about where I think some of these political parties are going. But at the moment, that would be the people that would win the biggest. And of course, the MK now in KZN. If that had been in existence in the last election, 4 current political parties wouldn't even be anywhere at all. And that's, that information is interesting to me. I don't know if it's scary to other people. Even the DA itself in the first democratic election only got 1.7%. So had this been enacted at the time, and it was a big discussion at the time, they wouldn't have been a party that existed either. So it's interesting that in 1994, they fought against thresholds, but now that it suits them, they would like thresholds. And I mean, obviously there's different players, but again, this is why we need to be informed as citizens, so we can have the recourse to say, why have things suddenly changed? Why do you take a different position? And then the last thing I'm going to say is that we work with a lot of organizations, and one of them is called Future Elect, and they have an app that they developed, and you can go on their website, and you can also download it on your Google Play, your App Store, your Android thingy. Sorry, I don't have a Samsung, so I'm not sure what it's called, that one. But what's great about that is that it teaches you all this information that I'm telling you now. It's in 5 minutes, bite-sized pieces, animations, different things. Lidiwe Mazibuko created it, and that's, we work together quite a lot. And I really think it's at the very least for you guys, the first step. Another tool is obviously things like the Civics Academy. The information is there, it's free, you can give it to whoever you want. And if you are someone who has people that are your employees underneath you, you should encourage them as well. Because last year I asked Standard Bank and a couple of other corporates, I said, look, why don't you do a survey of people who are sort of 39 and below and see how many people are registered? And they were very shocked at how few of their own employees had actually registered to vote. And that should worry us because these are people that are running, our money. And it's nobody's fault. I'm not shaming anyone. I'm just saying we haven't had the chance to do this properly as a country. But in particular, as young people, if it's not Suwumi Manje, we're going to be in a lot of trouble. And it's no longer something that we can say, oh, well, I didn't know. The cost of you not knowing now is going to be your job. The cost of you not knowing now is going to be the ability for your child to potentially be able to read. The cost of you not knowing is going to be whether or not you have a home or whether or not you're going to be working for the rest of your life, but not in a proper job and just kind of trying to see if you can hustle just enough so that you can die. That's, for me, what the cost is of not knowing this information. So I'm going to leave it there to give you guys a chance to maybe ask some questions. I don't know if Erica or Dineo is going to moderate. But I hope that you guys are as seized as I am about how we really need to take a lot more interest in the way that things are happening in our country because everything is political, everything affects us, and it's no longer going to be good enough for us to outsource all of this information either to political parties or the IEC or, the next door neighbor because we decided one, either not to go and vote.
Mbali, are you still there? I think we lost you.
Hello?
Yes, we can hear you now. We lost you for a bit, Mbali.
Oh, okay. Sure. I was saying, well, I don't know where you guys lost me.
I think maybe we can then open up for questions. So if you have a questions, guys, please do feel free. You can raise your hand. You can also write in the chat box. And I think for me, Mbali, I've met a lot of people, and then there's always a question of it doesn't matter whether I do vote or I don't vote. How can we change, the mindset and the thinking behind that?
Well, for me, I suppose it's exactly like what I said. If you don't vote, then you must just know that you've outsourced the ability for other people to have more power than you. Because the ones that do go out and vote are going to go and vote for what is in their interest. So when people say that to me, I assume that they don't care about anything in their lives. They must have the most perfect lives. They must have water. They must have no potholes. And it's become for me now something that is a crisis for our country if people are saying that they don't want to vote. And I know that not all the choices of political parties are the best, but you can't also wait and expect that political parties are going to be better if you aren't going to do the very basics of voting and then keeping them accountable. Otherwise, I don't know. I think that it is outsourcing your voice and your democracy to other people, and those people will do it. Because remember, power is not given, power is taken. So if you just decide to give yours freely by not going to vote, you best believe other people are going to be strategically voting for their interests, which might not be your interests.
Oh, thank you. Right, we do have a few questions on the chat. I see, Erica, you've raised your hand. You can unmute and ask your question.
Yeah, thank you, Mbali. You make a very big distinction between civic engagement and voting. So this presentation is not only about voting. I think we've come to it now, but what you were calling for right at the beginning is to be an active citizen, to get engaged with the community, whether it is the church or the school or the community forum or the cleanup campaign or the safety and security, wada. Maybe we can just put a poll up, Danielle, and just ask how many youth are engaged in civic activity. How many of you are spending some of your time outside of your normal, going to church time? I'm not counting that. But how many of you are dedicating some time to being involved in the community? Because at the beginning, that's where it starts. You're interested in community, you engage in community, you're helping in community. And afterwards, yes, you will also vote for the community and what's right for the community. But first and foremost, it is about engaging and being an active citizen. And so maybe while all the other questions are coming on, if you can draw up a poll, Dineo, and let's just get an indication of how people are engaging. Thank you.
Thank you, Erica. Do we have any other question?
I can see a couple of hands. I don't know if you can see them as well.
Yes, Onwabisa, you can unmute.
Hi, am I audible?
Yes, you are.
Yes, yeah.
Okay. I don't know if this question is unrelated, but so I'm an intern at the Parliamentary Constituency Office in George, Western Cape, and I just wanted to ask, what advice would you give me moving forward? Because obviously this program is gonna come to an end at I think it's like February 2026. So in terms of like employment and I don't know, moving further, what can I do?
Well, I mean, I don't know what you want to do. So it's a little bit difficult to ask, but I would even now start looking for general places that you're interested in. And I know sometimes it's hard to say to people, go and try and even ask them if you want to like volunteer, but sometimes that's the way that some people actually see your worth. If you want to be in political life in particular, I think that there's, a lot of interesting things, and the kind of work that you're doing now will give you a lot of skills. Even for civil society, I would imagine. There's a tracking tool that I helped to moderate when it was being launched called Parley Meter. I'm sure those kind of people would be incredibly happy to have someone with your skills who's already been in the industry. So yeah, without knowing exactly what you do, it's a little bit difficult. But if you really want to have a further discussion, then you can just find me on LinkedIn or something and we can chat.
Okay, thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. We also have a hand from Femke. Can unmute.
Good afternoon, everyone. I think my question is more of an how can I say, it's a more of a concern type of question. Let's say now you are a active community citizen. You're very active in your community and everything. Like Erica suggested earlier on in the meeting when she was saying something. However, why is it always that you would see everything that has to do the vote when it's closer to voting times, whereas just before that you've been active, you've been doing everything in the community. However, there isn't any I don't want to say political parties, but there isn't anything from the IEC, the voting people, and however, when it's closer to voting times, everyone is here, every and it's just overwhelming. So now, how do I differentiate between me being an active community person and just being someone it's coming because now they just want to get votes. I don't know if I'm making sense.
Yeah, so look, when it comes to political parties, let's not be naive. They are in the business of getting votes and getting into power. So they will tactically try and get to you as soon as possible to the actual voting day as they can. But that's, like I said, it's a chicken and egg. They wouldn't do that if that's not how we responded. If we put pressure on them throughout the year and not just when it comes to voting time, then they would feel like they had to do this kind of work all the time. As for the IEC, I have a great amount of sadness for them because they're not given the money to do voter or civic education. That's not a part of their mandate at all. And so a lot of the money that they even get to do that education before the elections actually comes from corporates, not even from Treasury, which is really incredible considering all the stats I showed you of how much money we're losing in a day. If you could take some of that 230 million and help the IIC, then we wouldn't maybe have the problem that we do, but that's where we are. And so I think you have to put as much pressure as you can. But the other thing that I think people forget is if you're that involved in the community, on average, the political party usually gets about 4,000 if it's a big ward. If it's a very popular ward, maybe 10,000 people to vote for it. And some of them can actually get in as PRs on 2,000. So I also think that we mustn't always be waiting for some political party or some person. If you know you're doing a lot of work in your community, if you can whip up your church groups and the sports or whatever groups that you're involved in, why not just stand to be the council in the area and do what you think needs to be done? I say this all the time when I go to universities. UKZN is just, near me. I was speaking at BITS the other day and UJ, and I said, wouldn't it be great if you got your entire student body, which is by far bigger than the amount of residents that are in that area, to actually vote for one candidate that you all agree as students could actually stand for you and be the first university or the first entity to actually get a young student in as a counselor? Why are we always waiting and thinking that we must do it in the way that it's always been done? And maybe it's easy to get to that conclusion because I'm so steeply, doing this work every day. But truly and honestly, nothing stops any one of you, as long as you're over 18, you register to vote, you're not insolvent, and you haven't been to prison in the last 5 years, from actually standing. It's about, I think, 100 names that you need to just get people to sign to put in your registration, and boom, you're there. And it doesn't have to be as expensive as political parties make it seem, because that's another way that they try to discourage people from entering the political fray. But I really would love if we could think a little bit differently in terms of also seeing ourselves as the leaders that we want, because these people are part of people that are in our communities. These ones that are stealing, they didn't get there from nowhere. We put them there. So we should be able to take them out, and we should be able to put ourselves in as well. Sorry, that went a bit long.
Mbali, if you can just go into the chat, there was a question over here. As a collective in the meeting, how can we ensure we start measuring our own impact apart from engaging individually in our communities or NGOs?
That's a really great question. And I mean, I would even throw it back to you. You guys know more about your grouping, but why not, like I said, one of the things that was irritating me was that people said young people don't register. So I came up with the registration campaign and I went out and registered people. What is it that you guys as a collective, as a group, would like to agitate for? I'm assuming maybe something around the idea of easier work for young people, better work, I don't know, subsidies for companies. One of the very first big things that I ran when I was youth leader was a youth wage subsidy, so that government would take half and the employer would take half and not take all of the cost of employing a new young person and getting them through. And we actually estimated that we would have been able to get millions of new young people into the workplace. But we were also just pushing on that particular mission with ourselves. COSATU was against it at the time. We marched to COSATU. And it's a brilliant program. And in some cases, it really is done in, a sort of way. But it still, surprised me that the government hasn't thought of that as being a very simple way to get more young people into the business. And something like Yes, sort of has gone towards that, which is great. But we could have done this a decade ago. So maybe something that your group could look towards is there some legislation? Is there something that you guys feel particularly strongly about when it comes to work? I'd also be happy to help you write that, up or down. And again, don't worry about being academic. And then let's choose an MP, or let's choose a party that said in their manifesto they care about young people, and say, this is an issue we want to see on the agenda. Put it in and let's see. And then we can track them. There's Parliameter, there's all these resources that we can look at to see where that bill actually is, and make them do the work that they said they wanted to do and give it to them and say, this is what. Because anyone can ask their MP to put anything into Parliament or the legislature or council for them. People just don't do it. But maybe that can be something that you guys decide as a group.
So you're saying if we are interested and we get together and we are intentional about it, you will look at it and you will sort of guide us along the process.
I will happily do that. And then I think what might also be a good thing for us to do, like I say, is let's look at all the political parties, and we can even give it to all of them that said that they cared about youth, and see which one actually does it. And then, we'll see how we then put pressure and see how far they go. And it doesn't have to be youth at work, because I also don't want, it's to get super political if you want. We can just do it as a group of young people. We can just call ourselves something random, but we would know who we were. And then let's see what our politicians actually do. And let's see how much pressure we can put on that. Maybe let's see if the media is interested. I think they would be. And let's track how much time it gets to actually get onto the agenda. And then let's watch which parties vote yes or no for it. And then you'll know ahead of next year's election or 2029 which ones were actually serious about doing their jobs.
I mean, let's put it out there, put it in the chat. Would you be interested in being part of something like that? Because it's a tall ask to ask for someone to take the initiative. But maybe you can just put your name in the chat and say, yes, I'm interested. And we can get a feeling for... Okay, so while people are using it in the chat, we've also got some feedback that 30% of the youth said, yes, they're involved in some community engagement already. And the rest not. Okay, so the rest not. You're either engaged or you're not. So even if you've answered not yet, but I want to start, you're not. Okay, so it means 30% of people are involved in community and the others are simply not. So thanks for that. Also happy to see some of the names coming up here of people who'd like to be involved. Maybe Daneo can take some names forward. Like you say, I don't think this is something that Youth at Work will drive, but we can definitely put it out there, and we can assist people who are interested to get together in a group and then take it forward.
Yeah.
Last questions. We've got 4 more minutes left. We know that we start on time, we finish on time. So any last comments to Mbali? Any last thoughts? You're welcome to put up your hands or just open your mic and off you go.
I'm into governance, but not, I don't know. The chat is going so fast. Somebody was like, I'm into governance, but not politics. Yes, I was on the radio last week. Yes, that was me. I can't remember which shows, but I was on the radio a few times. Again, sure, there's lots of stuff that you can do to just educate yourself about governance. And like I said, a lot of it is free. Maybe I can just write here in the chat and then like a couple of those links. And then, or maybe I can send them to Daneo or to send to you guys rather. Would that be easier?
Yeah, okay. I mean, there's quite a lot of people who's showing an interest in it. So I'm really happy to see that there was a topic that was chosen. In Bali, there were over 800 people, and I know many people were sharing phones and laptops and stuff. So it's well over 1,000 people who listened into this conversation. And there's lots of interest being shown over here. So I hope you feel encouraged that it's not everybody who's not active and not interested. It was only 30% of the people who said that they were active, but the rest who are still interested, and we're open to learning.
And one of the best things is I just think people once someone knows that actually the information is available, my feeling, which is why it's so important that we all spread this, is that people are generally interested actually in what happens in their country. They just haven't known where to go. So I'll share all of that with you guys, and you guys must then share it all with the next people, so that by the next elections, we all are far more informed about everything that we need to make this country really work for us. Thank you so much for having me. I'm really encouraged to see so many young people that are interested in taking a more active, participation in their democratic life.
Thank you, Erica.
Daneo, over to you. You can close.
So from the chat box, I did share the link for the session. Please do not leave the meeting without completing the attendance register. Just check in on the chat box. You can find the link. And then if there's anything else, please feel free to get in touch with us. We will upload the recording on our YouTube profile. So please do subscribe so that you can be able to view the recording later. And if there's anything else at any point, we have a hotline number. Give us a call, send us a WhatsApp text, and I'll also take a note for those who are interested. I just saw the names from the chat. It's very interesting. Thank you for joining. And we can then all open our cameras, videos. Let's see you and say our goodbyes.
Mbali, thank you. Heartfelt thank you for your work, for your advocacy.
Okay, thank you, everybody. Bye.
Bye. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Bye. Bye.
Oh, you mean we must write test? Okay, we are writing.
Bye.
Bye. Bye, everyone.
Guys, did you start with your test?